And for this video we're doing what is commonly referred to as hell, but mathematicians call it completing the square. Okay, completing the square. What does this mean? I'll tell you in a second. Let's just firstly look at a couple of things. What's x plus 7 squared? Okay, we learnt before that if there's a squared term, it's the first term squared plus the two terms multiplied by each other. So positive 7 times x is positive 7x, and then you times it by 2, so you get 14x. And then the last term squared, 49. Okay, so that's x plus 7 squared. Let's do x, I don't know, plus 10 squared will be x squared plus 20x plus 100. And I'll just do a minus in here. X minus 3 squared will be x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay. Now what we're going to do this time is to sort of go backwards. Okay. What we're going to ask is this question here. Given that you only, if we get rid of these last numbers, okay, if we get rid of those last numbers and I ask you, just by looking, in fact, I'll get rid of all this. Okay, I'll leave that there. Just change my mind a million times. If we were just given this here, x squared plus 14x, and we were asked to create a perfect square out of this, how would you do it? How would you know what number to add here? Okay, what number would you add? I've scrubbed out 49, but how would we get from 14 to 49? How would we get from 20 to 100? How would we get from negative 6 to 9? What's the sort of magical formula? How would you know what number to add if you were just given these first two numbers to be able to create a perfect square? And if you're clever, you'll probably see that to get from this number, to get from 14 to this number here, or to get from this number 20 to get to that number there, to get from negative 6 to that positive 9 there, what we need to do is we need to 14, we need to divide it by 2, and then we need to square it. 14 divided by 2 is 7 squared. That will give us the positive 49. Okay, that's there. Same thing with here. We're getting from 20 to 100. What we do is we divide it by 2. Whoops. And square it, which is equal to 100. Okay. Here we've got negative 6. We divide it by 2, and we square it, and that gives us 9. So, in other words, if you've got x squared plus bx, okay, so you've got some number in front of x. If you want to create a perfect square, like all these three, what you do is you add b divided by 2, and then you square it, and that will give you, in general, some weird noises outside, I must say. Is that a dog or a possum? What is that? Strange. In general, this is how you complete the square. If you've got some number in front of x, which is called b, to create a perfect square out of that, you'll add b divided by 2 and square it, and that'll create a perfect square. And what that'll end up looking like once you put it into your brackets and have squared will be x plus. What happened up here? If you put, once you created this perfect square, what did that 14 end up being? It ended up being a 7. What did this 20 end up being? Ended up being a 10. So in fact what happens is whatever that b is, it's b over 2 all squared. That's the important guts of completing the square. And if you know how to create a perfect square out of some number in front of x, then you're onto a winner. So what I'm going to do, hopefully you've got that down, and then I'll do some examples. So complete the square for x squared plus, which ones didn't I do? 10x. Okay. What we need to do, our number b, which is in front of 10 of x, is 10. So what do I need to do to complete the square? Well, I need to add something. 10 divided by 2 and square it. Okay, So I might just start that again, because what I'm going to do is start with the question, and I'm just going to write equals x squared plus 10x, and what I'm going to do is add 10 divided by 2 and square it. Okay, and so that's what we need to do to create a square. Now, having done that, we've changed the value of this. We can't just add something there without changing the value. So what we need to do, since we've added this in, if we just also subtract that term as well, and that means we haven't changed the value of anything. Okay, so what is this? This is x squared plus 10x. And what is this? 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared is 25. And then minus 25. And the reason we've done this is because this here is your perfect square. If you factorize that, you will get a perfect square. And that's the whole reason we've done it, is to create this perfect square. We've completed a square here. What is that? Well, that will factorize down to x squared. What will it be? I said in the last slide that that'll go to half of b here, so half of 10, so it's going to be plus 5. And then we've got this minus 25 sitting on the end, and we just tack it onto the end here. And that's the answer. That's what we're expected to find. We've completed the square, we've created a perfect square here, and then we've just got a little dag, a remainder thing on the end there. Okay, so that's called completing the square. Let's do another example of a squared, let's say minus 6x, oops, and a minus 6a, let's do plus 1. Okay, let's complete the square for this guy. So we've got a squared, we've got minus 6a. Now we need to figure out what do we need to add to this to create a perfect square. So what we're going to do is add negative 6 over 2, that's the number in front of a there, squared. We're going to add that to create our perfect square. But remember, we can't just add that out of nowhere. We need to also subtract it so that we don't actually change the value of this expression. And then we've still got this just plus 1 at the back there. Okay, so all this stuff here is this new stuff that was sort of added in here. That's all sort of new. We've just added that in to try and complete the square. What is this equal to? That's a squared minus 6a. What is this? Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared, positive 9, negative 9 plus 1. And this stuff here is your perfect square. So the perfect square ends up being, if you remember what I said, that will be a, and that will be half of negative 6, negative 3 squared. That's that, all that a squared minus 6a plus 9. If we factorise that down, you get a minus 3 squared. And then we've got minus 9 plus 1, so we'll just simplify that to minus 8. And that is the completed square. Okay, so get used to this. You don't need to write these things out as negative 6 over 2 squared. You can get used to just going straight to this step where you go, well, what's negative 6 divided by 2? Negative 3 squared, it's just positive 9. Subtract the 9 so you don't change the value of the expression, and then just clean it up at the end. I might just do one more example because people just love examples, especially for this, because it just gets so confusing. X squared plus 12x minus 7. Let's do this one. I'm going to do this one a bit faster this time. So we write that as x squared plus 12x. We need to create a perfect square. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 6 squared is 36. We need to add on there. We can't just add 36. We need to also subtract 36 to not change the value, and then we've still got this minus 7 sitting there. This here is our perfect square. So let's write what that's equal to. Equals x plus 6 squared, and let's just write what's left over. Minus 36 minus 7 is minus 43, and that is your answer. Okay, you'll see you get very, very quick at these. Okay, x squared minus 20x plus 1. Let's do this one. So we've got x squared minus 20x Minus 20 divided by 2 is minus 10. Minus 10 squared is positive 100. And we can't just add 100, we need to minus 100 plus 1. All this stuff here is our perfect square. That is equal to x minus 10, remember half of this, all squared, minus 100 plus 1, minus 99. And that is your answer there. Okay, hope that made sense. I'll do some more factorisation on that in the next video.